I've reached out to many of you, or you've given me your feedback, and kind of took that to the broader team, and we tried to create and redo the process to make it more efficient. I would like to say easier, but as you know, these patients are not easy, and some of the stuff is not exactly easy, but trying to make it more efficient. So some of the things Savannah was talking about, the paper CRF was a little redundant, had some unnecessary or confusing fields on there, a lot of duplication of data entry in the EDC, specifically the ConMeds was a huge burden. And then doing that separate Excel spreadsheet, and then the different email communications to stakeholders. So our new solution is to streamline this a little bit, cut out some of those email communications and things like that. And in REDCap, DCC will go over those changes specifically. But just some of the changes that I wanted to talk about is that we will no longer be filling out that Excel spreadsheet. So all of the fields that were previously entered in that spreadsheet and then sent over is something that will be entered when you're entering the SAE in REDCap, and that will trigger an email communication to the appropriate stakeholders. So you'll see here, there's some that are, it says related SAE or unrelated SAE, obviously meaning related to the IP. So anything that's related to one of our products will be sent to IUDCC and NIAAA, and then anything unrelated will just be going to IUDCC. I think this is to also cut down on all of the things that are going to NIAAA as well, because they don't necessarily need to know all the ones that are unrelated. The SAE paper CRF, I'm going to actually show you that. Instead of one long one, there's going to be two, an initial and a follow-up. You'll see that in REDCap as well. And then there's no longer going to be a separate SAE ConMed page. So you won't have to document those twice on paper and then also twice in REDCap. Did somebody have a question? Okay. I'll show you those forms in a minute. We can kind of talk about some of the changes there as well. For the narrative and the PI comments, these are no longer going to be needed to enter into REDCap. The things that you must enter into REDCap are the following here: the event name, start and stop date, the date that you're reporting, the last dose of medication, relationship to the IP, outcome, and classification. And those are some of the fields that will help trigger that initial email. Another change is that the SAE reporting form is going to be uploaded directly into REDCap. So once that's completed, you're going to go back into your SAE entry, and there will be, I haven't looked at it yet, I'm assuming like a little upload button or link to add your document there. So this says working on a process to email Dr. Gare. This is when we have to finalize this, but the process will allow the email to go to Dr. Gare when a new form has been uploaded. And then I believe, I don't know how this works, and necessarily it doesn't have anything to do with your workflow, but this will allow Dr. Gare to look at those things directly instead of weeding through all of the emails that he's getting for so many other things. For ConMed documentation, you might have noticed that there's a checkbox now that says add to ConMed log. This is to designate if a medication has been related to an SAE. It won't necessarily say which number that SAE is for. So a kind of a time frame, date time frame will be required there. So if we ever had to go back, we could relate that medication to an incident where a patient was hospitalized or had some kind of issue. Does anybody have any questions so far? Or does anybody from DCC have anything to add on what we've talked about so far? Okay. Basically, the sequence of events for the new process, you'll begin filling out any initial details once you're aware of an SAE. This will be on the paper CRF. You'll also add a SAE line in REDCap for the subject. And is this still going to be on the main AE log? And then we say, yes, it's serious on REDCap. Okay. So just like you're entering a normal AE, you'll add the serious part, and then you'll add the required fields that we talked about above. Then you'll upload the paper CRF with all the known information at the time of the initial report. The notification will be sent via REDCap to all the appropriate stakeholders. And then again, the SAEs that are related or not related will go to the appropriate people as well. Dr. Gari and the team will be notified of this SAE and then have access to uploaded documentation to review. Correspondence after review, that will probably be how it has been now. If it's anything of any concern and he has additional questions, he'll reach out to you. Otherwise, it'll be the same as it is now as far as that's concerned. For any follow-up, we will just have a follow-up section at the bottom of the SAE form in REDCap to capture that follow-up data. So this is where there will be a separate paper CRF, and that you won't have to fill out every single field again. So the things that are redundant, we will not have you be filling out. You'll only be adding that information that's updating. So if they were released from the hospital, if they stopped a medication, if the outcome has changed, if it's resolving now or it's resolved, anything like that. And then obviously if you need more than one follow-up, then you go from there as well. Any questions so far? Okay. Let's see. So most of this we've gone over already. The thing that I do want to talk about is the ConMeds, because the list of medications, you're just going to add that to your regular ConMed log in both your source document and in REDCap. So the dates are required. However, those can be loose dates. So some people don't have access. I know there was a site that told me they don't have access to this to see the exact dates all the time when a medicine is started or stopped. So that's where that time frame really becomes important. If you do have access and you can do the dates when it was started and stopped, that's even better. And that's just so we can associate any medications with a particular SAE in the future if some type of analysis would be needed. And then again, you're going to check a box for whether or not the ConMed is related to an SAE when you're entering those medications in the ConMed log. Okay, if nobody has anything with that, I'm going to move on to the form itself.
Something really quick.
So, sure.
So before you were required to send the email within 2 days of finding the SAE. So now, and that was loosely, you could enter the REDCap as soon as you had time. So now it will be, you need to fill out the paper SAE form and enter it and upload it into REDCap within 2 days. So we get that notification. So it'll just be not the email anymore, but you'll have to enter it into REDCap within the 2 days so that we get the notification within 2 days.
And I think, and this is, I can make this more clear in the guidance and maybe you guys disagree, but I think if they know those, let me go back to this real quick. Those things right here, if they could go ahead and enter that into REDCap and then be filling out the paper CRF and then uploading that with the known information. Obviously, sometimes you don't know what the outcome is. You don't know if it's related to IP or not, but you just have been informed that they've been hospitalized. So if you just have that initial information that can trigger the alert and then you upload the paper CRF still within that 48-hour window, but I wouldn't get worried about making sure that that whole paper CRF is entered before you enter these critical fields into REDCap.
Right. You can
Does
always
that sound reasonable?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay, now I've lost my paper.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I only have like 9,000 things up on my computer. Okay, so if for some reason you're working from home or something like that, I've made this sort of to where you can just click things here. Well, maybe. Oh, it's because I Sorry, I can't edit my PDF while I'm in here. You should be able to click this easily and add all of your comments in here. I don't think it's working for me on here. It works when I'm not sharing my screen. Tried it earlier. Hang on one second. One of the main changes is to add this SAE event term. So before you were entering the adverse event, and that is on the log line, but sometimes when you're looking back at the SAE itself or the form, the event name wasn't there, the event term. So when you're reading the narrative and all of those things, it wasn't always clear as to why the person was being hospitalized or what was initiating the SAE. So we want to make that sort of clear. There's a line here to add the AE log number. So if you're adding this AE as, acute anemia and it's log line 24, that way we can go back and see some of those other things that you enter on the main AE log that we're no longer requiring all of that information to also be a part of that serious adverse event form.
Rachel, we still only see the guidance.
Oh, you do? Oh, hang on. Sorry. Well, I'm glad that you didn't see me struggling for it to work then. Can't see it at all. Hang on one second. Let me stop share and get it on my screen. Oh, geez. Let's see. There it is. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is up here, there's a checkbox for initial, and you can enter the SAE number here and all of that. Here's where you're going to enter the event term specifically for the SAE, and then you can enter here the log number as it aligns with the AE log in source and in, well, not necessarily in REDCap because of the way they entered it, but this is going to be your AE log from your source. Here's the dates, the reporting date, who is doing the reporting, and the same thing here with the SAE classification. You'll be able to check this. You can also print this and write it because eventually the PI will have to sign it. But I know there's been a lot of people that have worked from home and they've started this, and it was a little difficult for them to put an X in the right box and things like that before. Event narrative, I've kind of made this a little, not as many lines because most people are having to attach additional pages as well. So you can do either or. You can just say see attached in these areas here and then attach that information. And then answer all of these questions as well. The thing that I did want to point out here is that we are going to be doing the action taken. There's a place here for you to add comments, the severity and relationship to product, and this aligns with your AE log. Another important question that was not on the previous form was their last dose of medication, and then whether or not the study intervention was discontinued due to this event. Here in number 19, where we're asking if any medications were used to treat the event, yes or no. And then you're just going to enter those directly into the ConMed log, like I said before, and just make sure you're checking SAE box. You will see in REDCap that it says, was this due to an SAE or ESI? And the ESI is the event of special interest because that's what we collect in the observational trial. And then you can add any relevant tests or laboratory data here, and then sign and date whoever's completing the form, and then the investigator as well. And what you'll notice is that it's only 2 pages now, and we no longer have all the ConMed pages for the SAE report. Any questions over that so far?
Yes, I do. Sorry. This
Okay.
is Stacy at IU. I've been back up on the study since the beginning, and I helped Jesse and then Jen one time. And with this change, the SAE term is going to be like the admitting diagnosis, and we don't have to list all of the problems that occurred during that time like before, like each line had a SAE.
Well, so it depends on if So Dr. Gare and I talked about this. So if a patient has, like a GI bleed, well, most likely they also have anemia. So if they're admitted to the hospital for a suspected GI bleed, that's going to be your SAE term. But
Right.
anemia would also be an AE, but it
Correct.
wouldn't necessarily be the SAE term.
Okay, we're on
So
the
you
same
may
page.
have both of those things on your adverse event log, but you wouldn't necessarily report them as two separate SAEs unless it was felt by the PI that, the anemia was important enough as an SAE on its own.
Right. Okay. No, we're on the same page. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to move to the follow-up and let me know if this comes over to my screen and you can see the new form here. Are you still seeing the initial one?
Nope, that's the follow-up.
Okay, perfect. So like the initial, you can click here for follow-up and then you can add the follow-up number. And then we are just collecting the gender up here instead of that gender and age here instead of that section, really just trying to cut down on how many pages you're having to fill out for this. So again, the event term and the log number will be here and the start and stop date, reported date and reported by, and the classification. And then you're going to just be filling out the outcome, whether or not the outcome was death and if they have a date of death, and then any actions taken here. And then if there were any meds that were added from the initial report. So if the only meds that they took were the same that you had already entered from the initial report, you don't have to list any additional medications here. And then a completed by an investigator signature. So hopefully trying to make it a little less paper that you're having to fill out during one of these events. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or any feedback? Is there something we're missing or anything? Okay, well, if DCC wants to start with the red cap piece of it.
All right, I will share my screen here. Okay, are you able to see my red cap screen here?
Yep, we are.
So I'm going to work here in our development testing version of the database, and I will just go through an entry of an initial SAE first. So we rearranged this form a little bit to try to match Rachel's form as best as we could. So we'll say this is a serious SAE. And since we're doing the initial report at this time, this is asking if there's a follow-up. So at this point, I will say no. And fill out the date of onset. I think this is all probably familiar from before. It's not unexpected, no consent required. And we'll make this one an ongoing, not recovered and not resolved. I think this is all pretty familiar from last time. Say it's unlikely related, and this is a new field here from our last dose of study medication. And here is this new part relating to the ConMed log. So if medications were used to treat this adverse event, click yes. And now instead of seeing all those extra fields pop up, you'll see this message reminding you to enter the related meds into ConMed's form. I'll go ahead and save this. you guys won't see this in the real database. We have this in dev, and don't worry about that. You won't see that when you enter your AE. So since we have some medications associated with this SAE, I'll go to the ConMed log. Let me do that. So we would like as accurate as possible. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. The date, and we'll consider this medication ongoing. So that would be the process for entering the initial SAE and its associated ConMeds. So if you have a follow-up to this acute kidney injury, you can come back in. Instead of entering a new form for the follow-up, you'll come back into this existing form. And at this point, you will have a follow-up. Click here. And then down below, you will see this section for follow-up number 1, where you can enter in the follow-up data. We'll make today this, and hopefully we'll say our person has recovered. And I guess I should also show you. So during your initial entry into the adverse event form, uploading the CRF is up here. So just select wherever it is on your system and upload the initial report form, upload file, read the message, and then you can see it here, the name of your file. If you need to remove it, you can remove it using this little red trash can here. And if you need to upload a new version of that same form, you can do that as well. Since I was originally working on the follow-up, you have a spot here under the follow-up to upload your follow-up CRF, and it's the same process.
Carla, so many times Dr. Galway will come back and say, actually, I think it's unrelated or this or that, and he'll talk with the PI. Would they be able to, instead of deleting it, just add another one if it just needs a few added words or
Yes.
changes? Okay, you can upload more than one. Great.
You know what I'll do? You definitely can. Let me go make a copy of, we'll make it like follow-up 2. It'll try uploading that. It should.
Awesome.
Then if this had not been a recovered, resolved SAE, this is still not recovered or not resolved, then you'll see a section for follow-up. If there's an additional follow-up, you can follow the same process, entering that information. We currently allow up to 3 follow-ups per SAE. If anyone finds that insufficient, we can add a 4th. But for now, we just built this with the 3 follow-ups. Hopefully that is adequate. If anyone has any thoughts on that, let us know, and we can adjust that accordingly. Are there any questions as I'm going through this?
I think that follow-up thing's awesome, but I was going to see if you would go back to where it asks the question if there's any tests, labs, anything like that on REDCap. Where is that? I think it's down. Yeah. Oops.
We miss it.
Yeah, it's right above the follow-up. There it is. So here you can just enter, X-ray, ultrasound, paracentesis, whatever, CT, and then you attach that information with your form. So if there's an interpretation or impression or something from EMR, you no longer have to write all of that information out on the paper CRF and then write all of that, type all of that information into REDCap. We'll be able to gather that from your documents. It may be nice if you have to print something out, you could highlight an area if you're going to be uploading several pages of attached documents. But the goal is to relieve you from some of that. So I just wanted to point out too that you're not going to be entering and writing out huge paragraphs anymore.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about the new process for us? I know it's a lot of information at once, but hopefully it's easy. I added it, or easier. I added a new folder in the OneDrive, so it'll be at the very top. You can see SAE guide, and it'll be the first one you click on when you are in the O2 clinical trial documents, and it'll have the guide in there, and we can add anything else that you will think useful. I can put this video link in there so you can go back to the training if you'd like as well. So just, you no longer have to email me anymore, the SAEs or Dr. Galray. So hopefully that'll make your lives all a little bit easier with this. Does anyone have anything else for the SAE that they'd like to add? Okay. Well, you all have been very quiet today, so I hope we did a good training, and if not, let us know and we'll individually train if you'd like, or anything that you think would be more helpful. So just let us know. And I guess I'll give you the rest of your guys' day back if no one has any, or the rest of the hour back if no one has anything else. Okay, talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much,
Bye-bye.
Diana.